The morning was a mess. Rain lashed against the windows of the small cafe in Lower Manhattan like an angry symphony. The bell above the door chimed now and then, letting in soaked umbrellas and tired footsteps. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of roasted espresso and the faint sound of lo-fi jazz. Brielle Monroe sighed as she scrubbed a sticky syrup stain from the counter, her fingers stiff from the cold that crept through the old glass panes. Her apron had a coffee splash she'd given up trying to hide, and her ponytail was one wrong move away from collapsing entirely. She glanced at the clock. 8:12 a.m. Another 8 hours to go. Her phone buzzed in her apron. A message from her younger sister. "Can you pick up meds after work?" Feeling worse today, Brielle's heart sank. They were already cutting it close with rent this month. She couldn't afford both the medicine and the heating bill, but she simply texted back, "Of course. Rest. I've got it." As she wiped her palms on her apron, the cafe door creaked open. A tall figure stepped in, shaking droplets off his coat. The chatter in the room didn't pause, but it should have. Cameron Hayes, the reclusive tech tycoon whispered about in magazines and splashed across tabloids, had just walked into her cafe like it was the most normal thing in the world. Except no one recognized him. Not yet. He wore a charcoal wool coat that hugged his broad shoulders perfectly, his medium-length black hair damp at the tips. But it was his eyes, icy blue and tense, that made Brielle freeze in place. Their eyes locked briefly, just a second. But something in his gaze unsettled her. Not in a fearful way, but in a way that made her heart beat out of rhythm. Cameron sat at the far booth, farthest from the window, away from sight, away from people. She approached with her notepad out of habit. "Welcome to Bean and Bramble. What can I get you?" He looked up, expression unreadable. "Black coffee, no sugar." She arched a brow. "No pastry? No croissant? What, you saving up for a ring?" The sarcasm slipped out before she could stop it. She didn't know why she did that. Maybe she was just tired. Maybe her nerves were doing cartwheels. Cameron blinked slowly, then smiled. Not the practiced, public kind of smile, but a real one, small, crooked, and entirely too charming. "Why?" he said, voice smooth like aged bourbon. "Are you proposing?" She barked a laugh. "Sure. Want to get married?" There. A joke, a flippant remark to move things along and fill the silence. But the moment it left her lips, something changed. The air shifted. He didn't laugh, didn't smirk, didn't toss the comment back. Instead, he leaned in slightly, resting his elbows on the table, and said softly, "Maybe I do." Her smile faltered. "Excuse me?" He met her gaze with steady calm. "You asked if I want to get married. Maybe I do." Brielle's mind scrambled for words. Was he being serious? Number he couldn't be. But the look in his eyes held no mockery. Just, curiosity, depth. She laughed again, this time a little too loud. "Okay, mystery man. Coffee coming right up." She turned sharply, cheeks flushed, and hurried behind the counter, her hands trembling just slightly. What was that? Who even says that to a stranger? And why was her stomach doing flips like she was 16 again? From across the room, Cameron watched her, not in a creepy way, but in a way that said he noticed everything. How she tucked that loose strand of hair behind her ear. How she bit her lower lip when she concentrated on pouring his coffee. How her eyes had the faintest trace of tired sadness. He hadn't planned on stopping here today, but now he couldn't imagine walking out without learning more about the girl who made a marriage joke feel like a possibility. And just like that, the spark was lit. Neither of them knew that a joke tossed over a cup of black coffee would lead to a whirlwind of secrets, sacrifice, heartbreak, and something neither believed they deserved. Real love. But fate was already brewing its own recipe. Hot, bitter, and unexpectedly sweet. The rain didn't stop for 3 days straight after that morning. It pounded against the cafe windows like a promise that winter was nowhere near done. But what surprised Brielle Monroe more than the weather was the man who had come in for a black coffee and stayed far longer in her thoughts than any customer had before. Cameron. He didn't give his last name. He didn't talk about his job. He just showed up every morning, right at 8:17. He always sat at the same corner booth, The one with the leaky light fixture that flickered during storms, and the chipped tabletop Brielle had once covered with a menu to hide. And somehow, despite his tailored coat and expensive leather shoes, he never complained. Instead, he asked her how she was doing. Not just in passing, he really asked, "How's your sister? Did you get any sleep last night? You look tired. Was it the night shift again?" And it wasn't creepy. It wasn't overly familiar. It was kind. Disarmingly kind. Brielle didn't know what to make of it. People didn't usually pay attention to her. She was the girl behind the counter, the one with the tired eyes and a stained apron. She served caffeine and polite smiles and kept her emotions tucked neatly beneath layers of sarcasm. But Cameron saw through all of that. He noticed the tremble in her hand when she carried too many trays. He noticed the way she forced a smile when her phone buzzed and she read a message that clearly made her heart sink. He noticed the small things, things she didn't even realize she was showing. One morning, 2 weeks into their silent routine, Brielle was wiping down a table where a customer had spilled their oat milk latte. Her mind was far away. Her sister's hospital visit, a warning notice about the electric bill, and the creeping exhaustion that wrapped around her like a second skin. She felt his eyes before she saw him. Turning her head, she caught him amid stare. Cameron didn't flinch. He didn't look away. He just gave that half smile that was slowly becoming dangerously familiar. She straightened up, hands still gripping the damp cloth. "Okay, seriously, why do you keep coming back here?" He blinked once, slowly, then leaned back in his seat. "Maybe," he said, eyes glinting. "I'm waiting for another proposal." Her face warmed instantly. She let out a huff and shook her head. "That joke has expired." "Some jokes age like fine wine," he countered, sipping his black coffee. She rolled her eyes, but a smile tugged at her lips. "You're not normal, you know that?" He smiled. "I get that a lot." They both chuckled, and for a moment, the noise of the cafe faded. It felt like they were the only two people in the world. But that moment was short-lived. A man in a sleek suit stepped inside, talking rapidly on a Bluetooth earpiece. He scanned the room and walked straight to Cameron. "Mr. Hayes," the man said too loudly, "you have your 11:30 with Milan on line 2. Cameron's expression didn't change, but his eyes darted to Brielle for the briefest second. He stood quickly, murmured something back, and stepped outside, phone already to his ear. Brielle froze. "Mr. Hayes?" Her heart stuttered. The name rang a distant bell in her head. She'd seen it somewhere. Heard it in a headline. Something big. Something billionaire big. That night, after helping her sister to bed, Brielle sat at the tiny kitchen table with her cracked phone screen and typed into Google, "Cameron Hayes." Within seconds, the search flooded with headlines. Tech billionaire Cameron Hayes acquires BioWave Tech in $3 billion deal. America's most eligible billionaire still single. Cameron Hayes, the elusive CEO with a mysterious past. Brielle stared at the screen, her heart thudding in her ears. She'd been serving coffee and making marriage jokes to a billionaire. She dropped the phone onto the table, nearly knocking over a glass of water. This wasn't just a flirty stranger with good taste in coats. This was Cameron Hayes, a man people chased down red carpets in corporate boardrooms, a man with more money than her entire town combined. And for 2 weeks, he'd chosen her booth, her cafe, her company. Why? As she lay in bed that night, her thoughts spiraled like leaves in a storm. Was he playing a game? Amused by the struggling waitress who didn't know who he was? Or was it something else? Something that scared her more than the rest? What if he was genuine? And worse, what if her heart was starting to believe him? The glow of her phone screen dimmed, but the firestorm in Brielle Monroe's chest only burned brighter. Sleep hadn't come the night before. Instead, she lay awake, eyes darting between search results and images of the man who had been sitting in her cafe booth for 2 weeks, smiling, listening, learning her life in fragments. Cameron Hayes, billionaire, CEO, America's most sought-after bachelor, and not once had he told her who he was. The next morning, the bell above the cafe door jingled with its usual cheer, but Brielle's heart was anything but light. She wiped down the counter with a shaky hand and saw him, again, right on time, again with that confident stride and soft gaze. But this time she didn't smile. She walked over slowly, folding her arms. "You're Cameron Hayes." He looked up, surprised but calm. "I am." "You could have said something." Cameron set down his coffee. "And if I had, would you have looked at me the same?" Her breath caught. He stood gently, his voice low, sincere. "I didn't want to be Cameron Hayes to you. I wanted to be a man who could ask how your day was and not have it be a headline. I wanted you to see me, not my bank account." But Brielle's walls were rising fast. Her past hadn't been kind to her, especially when it came to men with charm and power. Her father had walked out when the bills got too big. Her ex-boyfriend had cheated the moment she lost her job. Wealth, she had learned, could be a mask. And right now, all she could feel was that bitter sting of distrust. "You should have told me," she whispered, turning away. He didn't follow her this time, and that almost hurt more. The following days passed in a blur. Cameron didn't come to the cafe, and Brielle told herself that was for the best. But every time the door opened, her heart skipped, hoping. Then one afternoon, a card was slipped beneath the cafe register. "Meet me at Ridgeview Park, noon. No cameras, no pretense. Just me. See." She hesitated. 100 reasons not to go echoed in her mind. But curiosity and something deeper pulled her in. The park was quiet, kissed with soft sunlight and the scent of spring. Under a giant oak tree she found him. A checkered blanket, 2 sandwiches, a basket of simple snacks. No flash, no extravagance. Just him. "I thought billionaires did rooftop dates and private chefs," she teased, carefully lowering herself beside him. "I thought sarcastic waitresses didn't show up," he replied with a smile that met his eyes. They sat in silence for a moment, the breeze rustling through the grass like nature's whisper. "Brielle," he began, "you're not a project. You're not some adventure or distraction from board meetings. You're my peace, and talking to you, it made me forget the noise." She looked away, lips trembling. "I don't know how to trust someone like you." He reached over slowly, fingers brushing hers. "Then let me earn it." And that day she let him. They laughed. She told him about her sister, how she made up bedtime stories just to distract her from the hospital smells. He talked about his mom's old farmhouse, the one place he still felt human. He even confessed his fear of thunderstorms, a secret he hadn't shared since childhood. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with amber and lavender, Brielle felt something she hadn't in a long time. Safe, not swept off her feet, not dazzled, just seen. They leaned into each other beneath the stars, the quiet stretch between them filled with unspoken hope. No kiss, no promises, just presence. But peace never lasted long in a world that chased chaos. That night, Brielle's phone buzzed at 2:11 a.m. She groggily reached for it, thinking it was her sister's nurse, but froze when she saw the screen. Cameron's mystery fiancé? There, in full color, was a photo of her laughing with Cameron under the oak tree. The angle was perfect, too perfect. A long lens, a paparazzo. The article speculated wildly, throwing out names, backgrounds, even suggesting a secret engagement. Her stomach turned. Brielle stared at the screen, heart pounding, memories of the day twisting now under a harsher light. Was this the real world she'd stepped into? The one where every smile could be sold, every moment captured, every person judged? Was she just another headline now? And worse, had Cameron known this would happen? The next few days felt like a whirlwind of flashing cameras and judgmental eyes. Brielle couldn't walk to her car without being followed by reporters, each one shoving microphones in her face asking about her mysterious fiancé. They called her Cameron Hayes' mystery woman and painted her as someone desperate for a taste of wealth. Headlines screamed in bold letters, "Cameron Hayes' new love interest. Is she the one?" Her once quiet life was in tatters, unraveling at a speed she couldn't control. Even the cafe where she had spent countless hours serving regular customers had turned into a battleground of photographers. Brielle felt suffocated. No matter how many times she told the press she was just a waitress, they ignored her pleas. It felt like her privacy was stolen, her dignity shattered. The sweet moments she'd shared with Cameron suddenly seemed like they belonged to everyone but her. Anger flared in her chest. She couldn't even walk out of the cafe without seeing her face plastered across tabloids. This wasn't love. This was a game she didn't want to be a part of. In the quiet of her apartment that night, as she sat on the couch staring blankly at her phone, her heart waged war against her head. Did he know? Did he plan this from the start? Was this some cruel joke? The next morning there was a knock on her door. Brielle opened it to find a small package with a note attached, written in Cameron's familiar handwriting. Brielle, I respect your space. I hope one day you'll understand why I did what I did. All my heart, Cameron. Inside, nestled in the soft velvet of a box, was a ring, a vintage, intricate engagement ring, unlike anything she had ever seen. The gold shone with an old-world charm, and the diamonds were arranged in an elegant swirl. She couldn't help but feel the weight of it, not just in her hands but in her heart. This wasn't just any ring. It was his ring, the one he had kept for years, the one his late grandmother had passed down to him, and the one he had promised himself he would give to the woman he truly loved. But why now? Brielle ran her fingers over the smooth surface, lost in thought. She had never asked for this. She had never asked for him to insert himself into her life, to make her a part of his world. Yet something about the ring made her chest tighten. Her feelings for Cameron had been real. No matter how much she tried to deny it, her heart had been caught in his gentle gaze, his quiet strength, and the way he made her feel seen. But could this life, his life, be hers? Could she belong in a world that was so far from everything she knew? She lay on her bed staring at the ceiling, the weight of the ring resting beside her. Her heart was torn between the desire to believe in him and the fear of losing herself in his world. What if she wasn't enough for him? What if his love, like everything else in his life, was just an act? Would she ever be able to accept his wealth, the endless eyes that would watch their every move, the pressure that would come with being beside him? And worse, what if this was all just some elaborate game to him? But as the ring glimmered in the soft light of the room, she couldn't deny the truth. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe in what they had shared, even if it felt too good to be true. Brielle had been trying to move past the chaos of the past few weeks. The ring, the media storm, and the whirlwind romance with Cameron were all in the rearview mirror. Or so she thought. But the calm didn't last long. One afternoon, just as Brielle was closing the cafe, a familiar name flashed across her phone screen. Savannah Blake. Brielle hadn't heard that name in weeks, and the sudden appearance of Cameron's ex sent an icy shiver down her spine. She hesitated before answering. Hello? A voice, smooth and sugary, spoke on the other end. Hey, Brielle. It's Savannah Blake. I saw the headlines and I felt like I should reach out. You're so beautiful, and I think you deserve to know the truth. Brielle felt her stomach knot. She didn't know what to expect, but she didn't trust Savannah. Not after everything Cameron had shared about their toxic past. Truth about what? Brielle asked, her voice guarded. Savannah chuckled lightly, as though the conversation were a casual one. Cameron, he's a heartbreaker, Brielle. Always has been, always will be. You're just a phase. He does this with every girl, gets them all excited, makes them feel like they're the one, and then he moves on. It's all part of his charm, you know. Brielle's heart skipped a beat, her palms growing clammy. She tried to brush it off, but Savannah's words lingered in her mind like an unwelcome echo. I don't believe you, Brielle said, but even she could hear the uncertainty in her voice. Savannah didn't back down. You will. Just wait. He'll show you his true colors. Trust me, you'll see it all for yourself. I'm just trying to save you from getting hurt. He's never going to change. The line went quiet for a moment. Brielle's thoughts were a swirl of confusion. Was she being naive? Could Savannah be right? Was Cameron really just using her as a stepping stone, like all the others? The next morning, Brielle found herself pulling away from Cameron once again. She couldn't shake the feeling that maybe Savannah had a point. Maybe it was all too good to be true. Cameron had kept so much from her. She didn't know who to trust anymore. Her emotions, once so clear and sure, had become muddied by doubt. Brielle kept her distance. She didn't answer his calls. She didn't respond to his messages. She needed time to think, Time to figure out if this love, this whirlwind romance was real or just another illusion. For days, Cameron's attempts to reach out went unanswered. He was confused and crushed by her silence. He wasn't sure what had gone wrong, but he could sense the change in her. Something had shifted. Had he moved too fast? Had he scared her off with his affection, his promises, his attention? He didn't know. All he knew was that he missed her. He missed the way she made him feel alive, the way her laughter was a balm to his soul. But Brielle's distance cut through him. She was slipping away, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. At least that's what he thought. Then, just as he was starting to lose hope, something unexpected happened. Brielle's younger sister, Emily, had been ill for days. But that morning, everything took a turn for the worse. The hospital called with urgent news. Emily's condition had deteriorated, and she needed a blood transfusion. Immediately. Brielle felt the floor drop beneath her as panic set in. Emily was all she had left. She couldn't lose her, not like this. With trembling hands, Brielle rushed to the hospital, her mind racing a million miles a minute. What if they couldn't find a donor in time? What if she lost her sister forever? But when she arrived at the hospital, a sight that almost stopped her heart in its tracks awaited her. Standing outside Emily's room, in a suit that looked far too out of place in the sterile white hospital hallway, was Cameron. He wasn't holding flowers. He wasn't there with some grand gesture. Instead, he was holding a manila envelope. His eyes were serious, his jaw set with determination. Cameron, Brielle's voice trembled as she approached him. He handed her the envelope without a word. Inside, there were blood test results, compatibility tests. Cameron had taken them in secret, had checked if he was a match. The look in his eyes told her everything she needed to know. I'm a match, he said quietly, his voice calm but laced with urgency. I've already arranged everything. I can help. I want to help. Brielle's breath caught in her throat. This was no joke. This wasn't some last-minute attempt to fix things or win her back. This was real. Cameron was offering his blood. He was offering his life to save her sister's life. Her chest tightened with a mixture of emotions, relief, gratitude, and a deep, undeniable love for this man who had just proven, in the most powerful way possible, how much he cared for her. I don't know what to say, Brielle whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. You don't have to say anything, Cameron replied gently. I just want you to know that I'm here. For you. For Emily. For whatever you need. In that moment, Brielle realized that the fear that had been holding her back, fear of getting hurt, fear of being let down, had been replaced by something much stronger. Trust. Trust in him, in what he was doing, and in the love they were beginning to build. This wasn't a joke anymore. This wasn't a game. Cameron had just proven he would fight for her. And in that moment, Brielle knew that no matter the obstacles ahead, she wasn't alone. It had been 3 months since Brielle had last seen Cameron. 3 months since her world had been turned upside down, then slowly pieced back together, stitch by painful stitch. The media frenzy had died down, their eyes now shifting to newer headlines. The buzz of their relationship had faded into whispers, and Brielle was grateful for the peace. But peace didn't mean everything had been easy. Brielle had changed. She was no longer the uncertain, unsure girl who feared getting her heart broken. She was stronger, more confident, more herself. And yet she hadn't been able to shake the love she felt for Cameron, the tenderness in his eyes that had never wavered, even when she'd pulled away. She missed him in ways she didn't know how to express. But it wasn't just that she missed him. It was that she knew she couldn't live without him anymore. Life had been moving forward, with its routine and its quiet moments. She'd taken on more responsibility with her sister Emily, and her job had become something she no longer resented. Brielle had started to feel like she was finally carving out a space for herself, a space that didn't involve running from her past, from her fears, or from love. It was on one of those quiet evenings, as snow began to drift lazily from the sky, that Brielle found herself walking back into the cafe. It was the same cafe where everything had started, where her life had collided with Cameron's in that unexpected playful moment over a cup of coffee. The little cafe, warm and comforting against the winter chill, felt like home in ways she couldn't quite explain. She stepped inside, and the soft jingle of the bell above the door pulled her from her thoughts. The familiar scent of coffee beans and freshly baked pastries surrounded her, but it was the sight of him that stole her breath away. Cameron sat at their old table, just as he had that first day. He looked up as she walked in, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. The intensity in his eyes, the same look he had given her that day when she jokingly asked about marriage, was still there. Maybe even more powerful now. His lips curled into a smile when he saw her. "No croissant?" he asked with a teasing glint in his eye, his voice rich with the kind of familiarity that only time can create. Brielle smirked, crossing the room toward him. "Still no croissant," she replied, leaning against the table, her heart beating a little faster than she'd expected. She could feel the warmth of his gaze, the unspoken words that had been between them for months. "Guess you're still waiting on that proposal?" Cameron's smile softened, the teasing replaced by something deeper, something more vulnerable. "I've been waiting," he said quietly, his voice low but full of meaning. "But only if you're ready." Brielle's pulse quickened. She'd thought about this moment every day since they'd last seen each other. The moment when she could face the truth, when she could admit that everything she had been afraid of, the hurt, the heartache, was worth it if it meant being with him. Being with someone who loved her with an intensity that could move mountains, someone who wasn't afraid to put it all on the line for her. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the small velvet box he had left behind months ago. The one with the engagement ring inside, the one he had given her with such sincerity, but that she had put away because she couldn't bring herself to trust what it meant. Not yet, but now everything felt different. The fear had melted away, replaced with certainty. Brielle placed the box on the table between them, and for a moment their eyes locked. Her heart raced. "Does this come with a croissant or a lifetime?" she whispered, her voice trembling with the weight of everything that had brought them to this point. Cameron's eyes softened, and he stood up slowly, the distance between them shrinking until they were face to face. His hand reached for hers, his grip warm and strong. "Only if you're the one sharing it with me," he said, his voice thick with emotion. And as his words settled between them, Brielle felt a wave of love wash over her. Tears stung her eyes unbidden, and she couldn't help the smile that spread across her face. Cameron wasn't just asking her to marry him. He was asking her to choose him every single day for the rest of their lives. He wasn't just offering a ring. He was offering his heart. Brielle nodded, her chest swelling with emotions she couldn't name. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Cameron. I'm ready." Cameron's eyes glistened with tears of his own as he gently took the velvet box from the table and opened it. Inside was the vintage engagement ring, the same one he had carried for years. He slipped it onto her finger, and for the first time in months, everything felt right. This was it. This was the beginning of the rest of their lives. "Thank you," he murmured, his voice breaking slightly. "Thank you for trusting me, for trusting us." Brielle smiled through her tears, her hand still in his. "Thank you for never giving up on me." The snow continued to fall outside, but inside the little cafe, it was as if the world had paused just for them. This was where their story had begun, and now it was where their forever started. The wedding was everything Brielle had never imagined, and everything she had always wanted. There were no extravagant decorations, no lavish crowds, just the people who mattered most. The small chapel was filled with soft light, the scent of fresh flowers in the air, and the feeling of something profound settling around her and Cameron. This wasn't a spectacle, it was a promise that had started with a joke, one that neither of them could have predicted would turn into this. Brielle had spent so many years keeping her heart guarded, afraid of people who could hurt her, afraid of letting anyone too close. But in the quiet intimacy of this moment, she realized she had found her home in Cameron. Their vows were simple, heartfelt, spoken with the kind of sincerity that could move mountains. The only hiccup had come when Savannah, Cameron's manipulative ex, had attempted to crash the wedding. She showed up elegant as ever, with a smug expression, ready to make a scene. But the security at the gate had turned her away, and with that, the drama was over. Brielle didn't even have to look in her direction. The past was behind her, and it no longer had any power over her. As the evening continued, they danced beneath a canopy of twinkling fairy lights. The soft glow of the lights above mirrored the glow Brielle felt in her heart. She was no longer the uncertain girl she once was. She had grown, blossomed into a woman who was ready to embrace love, to embrace this beautiful life that Cameron had offered her. Cameron pulled her close, his voice low, filled with emotion as he whispered against her ear, "Still think it was a joke?" Brielle's lips curled into a smile as she looked up at him, her heart full, her eyes sparkled with warmth. "No," she replied softly. "I think it was fate, disguised as a joke." He chuckled softly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers gently grazing her skin. There was no need for words anymore. They had spoken everything they needed to in their vows, in their gestures, in their moments together. This was it. This was forever. As they swayed to the music, Brielle felt the weight of everything they had been through, everything they had overcome. The jokes, the doubts, the betrayals. It all seemed so far away now. The past was nothing but a distant memory, and before her stood the man she had chosen, the man who had chosen her in return. The camera panned out, capturing their silhouettes against the soft glow of the fairy lights. Snowflakes drifted down from the sky, and for a moment, the world felt still. As the music swelled, the soft sound of their laughter and whispers filled the air, and Brielle knew this was just the beginning of their forever. They danced beneath the stars, and with every step, Brielle's heart knew without a doubt that the joke had been the beginning of something beautiful, something real, something that would last a lifetime. And as they continued to dance, their love became the only story that mattered.